All right, welcome to the Addicts Truth podcast. My name is Recovery Jon. Thank you guys for tuning in again. Today we have an amazing guest, Manny Vitale. I'm really excited to hear his story, talk about his podcast, what he's doing today, and where he came from. Manny, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Definitely
appreciate it.
I'm excited because I got to hear a little snippet before this, and I want to hear the whole story in different parts. So let's start it off, and you introduce yourself, let them know about you.
Yeah, first of all, too, man, me and John just met today, and, sometimes you get that feeling, man, when you meet and you click, and I tell you, hear John's story, it is an honor and a privilege to be on your show. But yeah, my name is Manny Vitale. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and, I jumped into the world of addiction, and I took baby steps doing this. We were talking earlier about when you see people, sometimes they'll judge the book by the cover. When people see someone, they're like they can almost tell or think what their life story is. And mine started out. I did come from a split family. My dad did divorce when I was very young. My biological dad was quite the prick. He was very well known in the city of Detroit for the wrong reasons. Very violent, very involved in criminal activity. By the grace of God, my mom is just an amazing. She's my hero, and got us out of that situation. But even that being said, because I did live with aunts and uncles and cousins at the time, but it was just surrounded by love. I mean, I grew up, I'm the only child, but I grew up with all my cousins. So it was like brothers and sisters everywhere. A very positive upbringing. Sports, loved baseball, hockey. I was very fortunate to excel at both, and especially hockey, which was kind of a blessing and a curse because I loved it so much that it occupied most of my time instead of, kind of going off path and meeting the wrong people. But at the same time, I really excelled at it, so I was getting bumped up different divisions. So now I'm playing with guys that are older than me as years went on. So things happen with that, but it's all about drugs and alcohol. And I started the old experimenting with my good brother Jerry, who we'll talk about his story too, because some of the things that he said to me kind of gel with my story. But we did the thing back when we were probably 12 or so, where you're 13, you sneak down to your parents' bar, grab a bottle, guzzle whatever it was, try not to puke. And stuff like that. And never really thought of any issues at that young of an age. But, things happen in our lives as we grow older. And, I did, start drinking more as the years went by. High school is definitely that time in our lives where, decisions are made. Sometimes they are the wrong decisions. And but even in high school, though, John, I didn't. Some of the friends that I'd see back when I was in high school, that was in the '80s, so we didn't have this huge fentanyl and thank God all the other issues that are happening now in the world. It was mainly beer, liquor, weed, coke, and then in the '90s, crack started to come around. Started drinking a little bit more through my later years in high school, and still never really an issue. Started working, and always loved helping people, and always loved I remember when my freshman year in high school, when we first started this one class, it said, write down what you want to be by the time you're a senior. And then what you want to be by the time you're 21 and 25, the goals that you would like. And I put, by the time I'm a senior, I wanted to be captain of the hockey team. By the time I was 21, I wanted to be an EMT. And those things did happen. I was able to take care of the hockey team and started working at a major hospital and took some classes. And I always loved that, but I always definitely loved a little bit of the adrenaline junkie. I love the high intensity, living on the edge kind of thing. I always loved Harleys, being on the bike, ride, just, you know, uh, living on the edge. And as things progressed even more so over the years, the drinking did start to increase. In my 20s or so, I was with the Detroit Police Department for a short time. And a short time, it's because of the drinking and the issues that came about that led to me to leave the police department. What happened was I came on and, it was always, the drinking. Like I said, I never thought of it as an issue at all, but then again, looking back, it's like, well, some of those signs are warning signs. So I knew I was screwed because I graduated from the police academy on Friday the 13th. I was assigned to the 13th precinct. My badge number's 3130, and I was born on Devil's Night. And I remember driving with my training officer, and he's just like, get out of the car. And I'm like, Dave, this is a good thing. We made it through our first shift. But through that time, drinking started to become more of an issue. Within that process, within that time, that friend of mine, Jerry, that I grew up with, we all drank. Jerry drank quite a bit more. And with our schedules, we never lost contact, but it wouldn't be unusual to go a month and a half without seeing each other, because of our schedules. I get a phone call from one of our other friends. They said, have you seen Jerry? What's going on? It's been a bit. He goes, Manny, you got to get over there. So I call him, Jerry, what the hell's going on? Oh, nothing. It just sounded, something wasn't right. And so I go over there, walk downstairs, and there's my best friend, my brother. And I'm looking at him, and it's all dark in the basement. And he was always a bigger guy, but he looked even bigger. His gut, it was distended because of kidney and liver issues. And as I got closer and I turned the light on, he was yellow, organ failure. And I'm like, Jerry, what the fuck? What's going on? And it was a little bit emotional. And I had this guilt that, why haven't I been over here? Just all this weird stuff is flying through my head. And he goes, everything's okay. No, it's not. And we got to get you to the hospital. And he said, I'm going to the doctor in a couple days, which was a lie. He didn't go. And we get a call from my other friends a couple days later that you need to get over there again. This time, there was 4 of my other buddies that were there. I come in, and he looked even worse, and he was very he wasn't very clear in his speaking because of the organ failure. And my buddy Jeff goes, tell him what's going on. I'm like, what? He goes, I'm pissing blood. I'm like, Jerry, man. And he goes, I'm shitting blood. And we got to get you in. He goes, no. I go, Jerry, you're going to die. He goes, I know. It's like, son of a bitch. We finally get him into the hospital, and I was taking care of his decisions because he had issues with his family, and they examine him, and the doctor pulls me in the hall, and she said he's very ill, and she starts tearing up, and I go, what's the outlook? She goes, nothing we could do, in a matter of weeks. Man, John, I walk in there, and he's looking at me, my brother, just staring at me, and he goes, what'd she say? And I'm trying to keep it together, and I go, she said that you're ugly and quit hitting on her. And we kind of laughed. And he goes, brother, I'm never going to drink again. He goes, I had my last drink. He goes, when I'm out of here, and I'm just listening to him like, son of a bitch. Well, a couple of days go by, they call us, you better get in here. We come in, and he's basically dying. They put his morphine drip on to keep him comfortable. And I remember actually getting into bed and holding him when he took his last breath. And I remember looking at my buddies. I'm like, what a hell of a way to die. And that comes into play here. But yeah, so that's, I kind of backtrack a little bit about that with Jerry. But yeah, man, I was with Detroit police, and you see a lot of crazy shit.
Yeah.
And so that kind of leads you down. You want to numb your senses as well.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say sorry to hear about Jerry.
Oh, thank
Obviously,
you.
we talked before, and on your podcast, we could relate to it's just devastating, the loss.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting you say that, because that's something I say a lot. I have so much respect. Never been a cop, never been EMS. Recently dated an ICU nurse. Have a cousin that's a nurse. So I just have a ton of respect for EMS, police, fire. I mean, the stuff normal people just go about their day to their office and like blah, blah, blah. And they don't realize what these other people are clocking in and seeing: car accidents, suicides, gunshots. And even just the sad part, like I know nurses close to me say the hardest part isn't so much the gore. It's hard at first. You get used to the gore.
Mm-hmm.
They say watching like a mom cry over their kid, vice versa. So, I talking about just a numbing, I think it's an important topic.
It really is, and I've seen all of those. I work besides police. I worked ER, and I worked in the ER as well as in a rig on the road, and I've seen those where we had to tell a mother that their son died, or just a family member. But when you tell a parent that their child is dead, it's called the death scream. It's a scream that it's a scream once you hear it for the first time, you'll never forget it, because it is the most terrifying, agonizing, sorrowful. There's no words to describe the pain that person's feeling. And then I hear, I wish I could have told him I loved him. I wish I could have done this. So there's a lot of that going on. And with first responders, there is that, the stuff that I've seen as a first responder, more so in the ER and on the rig, is just stuff. When I'll have buddies and stuff, people want to hear stories. And, when I first started doing this, way back in the 90s, you're telling these stories, and it's like, wow. And it's, it's high intensity and all that. But, there's a person behind that name that you just saw with his side of his head blown off or just torn apart in this terrible accident, and the agony's real. And I know when I first came home, my very first day, my first call as a police officer, I got involved in a gun run. First call. It's like, welcome to Detroit. And like a couple calls later, there was a guy with a knife pulled on us, and just insane. And I came home, and my girlfriend, I walked in the door, and she's like jumped on me, just hugging me that I'm home. And she goes, this is very hard to deal with, being with you, knowing what could happen. So I'm like, you're not going to believe today, this gun run, and then this knife, and this, and all of a sudden she goes, stop. She goes, I don't want to hear this. Okay, so what do? I call my buddies I work with. Yeah, I'll meet you at the bar. So you start numbing your senses. And so yeah, that is a big part of it, when you're, dealing with that. So I have my brothers and sisters were first responders. I just love them, and nothing but mad respect for them.
Absolutely. And now that you did that, you started numbing, you're seeing a lot of stuff, like starting to take a toll. Where does it I know the story gets even crazier into the police and then the other side of law, so I'd love to talk about how things kind of transform and when you start to see those red flags, like it's getting crazy.
Yeah, I always would judge by looking at other people. It's like, I knew I was messing up, so I would purposely look for people I knew that were messing up more. And I was like, whew, well, I'm not as bad as this person. Well, I'm not doing what they're doing. Yeah, but man, you're still doing this. Well, yeah, but not as bad, Yeah, until you do get, in trouble. Here I am, wearing a badge, and people getting hooked up for drunk driving and drugs and all that. And here I am, out after shift parties, getting shit faced, and it's just like this very double-edged sword, very hypocritical and all that. And the red flags are definitely there. And but for me, I ignored them because it's like, no, not me. That doesn't happen to me. That happens to other people. As things went on, I noticed the drinking started going way up. I lost a couple partners. And one was we were in a chase, and Pat was the car was stopped, and Pat worked at a different precinct. Went running up to the car, and by the time he got to the car, the guy had a 380 and shot Pat in the head and killed him, and that was tough. Me, Pat, and a couple of guys were very tight from the academy all the way through, so that was tough. And then I had another officer, a friend of mine, who was killed at my precinct, which was very difficult because they thought it was me. The way it came out on news media was he was on his way to court. So he was actually full uniform at work, but he was taking his truck. He was at the precinct. He goes, I'm just going to jump my truck, go to court. I'll be right back, instead of taking a squad car. He had a white or a Ford pickup truck, exactly like mine. Well, I was working that day. I got to work, and my desk sergeant's like, hey, Vitale, man, we got a full desk, man. You're good if you want to take today off. Man, it was a beautiful day. It was first thing in the morning, day shift. My cousin worked Sterling Heights Police, and he had a boat with all the Sterling Heights guys. So I called Glenn. I go, hey, what are you doing? He goes, man, we're just loading the boat up. I'll be right there, man. They just cut me loose. So my girlfriend, I go, well, I don't need to call her. She's working anyways. So fly down the boat. We're out there partying all day. Well, back then, back in the 90s, we had pagers and stuff. Mm-hmm. So we had our duffel bags underneath in the bow with our guns and our pagers and everything in there. Well, all day long, we're partying like rock stars. And all of a sudden, Glenn walks down below, and he went to get some out of his bag. And all of a sudden, he looked, and his pager had hundreds of just pages. He's like, the hell, all 911. And all of a sudden, he heard something else in my bag. And he goes, man, something's going on, man. So I went down there. My pager was blown to shit. Like all 911 to call my girlfriend. I was like, and he was married to my cousin. So this was all family. What happened, broke on the news, was it came out. It said a Detroit police officer was killed from the 13th precinct when his Ford pickup was hit broadside. And no details. I've got a Ford pickup truck, 13th precinct. I'm not picking up. They won't give information at the. It was insane. So yeah, it was a very difficult time, not only for the ones who are the officers, but family and friends. The drinking started to increase from there quite a bit, to the point where it was affecting my thought process on a job. And that job is one where you can't make mistakes. If you make a mistake, you die, someone else dies, which could be someone that you're apprehending, somebody that's whatever, or your partner. Thank God I had enough left at that moment of time as far as thinking, is there's no way I can live with myself if, because of a decision I make, I lose one of my partners. Because I kept thinking about Pat in my head. I wear his two partners. These are their badges. This is mine. And I ended up making the decision to leave the department, which frickin' killed me. So needless to say, once I signed that paperwork, it was probably minutes before I had a drink in my hand, and it just, so that was one of those aha moments. I still love that work. So I ended up going back to school to get advanced more as an EMT, a licensed EMT. And so I basically traded in my police car for an ambulance. I started working the road. And again, you see a lot. And it really does affect you a lot. And just how you cope with it and process it is a big thing,
Yeah. Well, I thank you for your service of both of them, obviously.
Appreciate it.
I commend, like I said, anyone who did that, because I feel like in my life, I just saw enough, and I was like, can't imagine seeing more. And I don't know how the people do it today, just seeing it all the time. And I think it's important for people to hear that, reach out for help if you're a nurse, if you're an EMT, if you're a cop. It's like some of the highest suicide and addiction rates. So it's like it's okay to get help. There's a good reason you use. Better than like me, who was just 18 messing around, kind of,
Yeah.
And I respect that you walked away from it because it is tough. It's so much responsibility.
Man, John, it was such a hard decision. I busted my ass just to get that job that I loved, and knowing I'm the one that cost me it. It was my actions, and you hit on it too, as far as the help is there. I've had people say, well, there should be help for first responders. There should be help in counseling. There is. It is there. But the thing is, and it's both male, female, first responders. A lot of times with us guys, you got to check your ego at the door, man, because it's like, I don't need help. If you say those words, I don't need help, you need help. And, my help was leaving. That helped maybe save the lives of somebody in the job. It definitely didn't help mine because my drinking got worse. And I literally left the department, and I knew a lot of guys that rode in these 1%er clubs. And we're talking high intensity, motorcycle clubs. And there's a few in Detroit. And I knew these guys before coming cop. I knew them from all these different clubs. So they knew me beforehand. Because people are like, there's no way you could get in these clubs as a cop. Well, those people have no clue what they're talking about because I did it. And it's documented, the stuff that I did, I rode with them. And, it was a very intense time where I was accused of still being a cop. I mean, what a better front to infiltrate a club. A distraught police officer leaves the force to become a 1%er. What a great way to get all the inner workings. But again, I knew these guys, and with if you're having issues with drugs and alcohol, you go into a 1%er motorcycle club where all I gotta do is, hey, I want this, boom, it's done. A lot of violence, a lot of fights. I was involved in many confrontations, and I just didn't. Normal to me was I'd get up in the morning, throw on my jeans, throw on my leather, put a 40 cal on my hip, a 38 in my vest, a knife in my boot, and cause as much fucking chaos as I could. That was my day, and I loved it. And it damn near killed me. I was involved in a few confrontations. I was in a fight, and one thing led to another. I turned around, and this guy had a gun right here. And grab it. We start fighting right here. And boom, he shoots. And I hit the deck. Well, what happened is he shot, it just went right by here, got me right across the side, and the barrel came back and kicked here and shattered my orbital bone. And in the hospital, and they had to cut this open down and pull the side of my face down, put a plate in my face. And, you would think something like that might, they listen, you know what, maybe the path I'm on is not the right path. All I thought about is, I'm going to get this son of a bitch. That's all I cared about. About a year later, another fight. Next thing you know, man, I get hit with a razor knife right down the side of my face right here. And, again, didn't care. I mean, nothing mattered, man. It didn't matter if I hurt somebody or if I hurt myself. Just at that point where I just didn't care.
Yeah, that's amazing to go from EMT, cop to 1% bike club.
My buddy does a show, and I was on it, and he loved it. He goes from lawman to outlaw, and that's basically what it was.
Did you have any kind of questions when you did go in? I know you said you already previously knew them, but they were kind of like vet you and be like, are you sure you're not working with them?
There was and everything that I say on these shows, because people say, well, they question, they're like, that, and I love it too. It's because all these keyboard cowards, that they type all this shit. And they're talking crap. But yet, they never follow it up with anything except hiding behind a keyboard and a monitor. It's like, they're like, oh, you could never have rode. Man, there's pictures of me all over the place with the club. I rode with them for years. And there was an issue because I knew a huge bunch of guys here, there's a bunch in other different chapters of the Highwaymen that didn't know me. And a lot of them that law enforcement, you don't say that word in that clubhouse. And here I am wearing this. And I had a few guys say, cover it up, cut it off, or we'll do it. You bad enough to do it, do it. And I'm still wearing it. And but there was an occasion where I got a phone call, and we were heading to our clubhouse. And the master sergeant called me. Goes, Manny, head down, or head to the main house on Michigan Avenue. I go, oh, all right, man, we're heading there. And he goes, no, just you. And I was like, all right. So I hung up, and I was just 2 blocks from home. Went back home, grabbed another gun, a couple more mags, instead of not going. And I'm like, fuck that, I'm going. So I'm starting to roll, and my good brother of mine in the club, he's the one who sponsored me, and Porky, who is no longer with us, and I actually put him in a body bag. Another crazy story. But he called me, I go by Gunner in the club. He goes, listen, Gunner, I don't feel as won't blame you if you don't go to this. And he goes, just so you know, someone's calling you out saying that you're a narc, that you're still on the job. I knew it was just a matter of time. And I go, fuck that. And I go, I'm on my way. And he goes, you don't have, no, fuck that, I'm going. I walk into the clubhouse, and there's the national president of all chapters. And I was like, oh, shit. And there's 2 other presidents, the high-ranking members, and who I obviously know. So I walk in, and my president, he's looking at me, and you could tell this was very tense. And the national looks at me and goes, let's just cut the shit. He goes, you a cop? I go, I was. And I go, you know the situation. He goes, well, you're being accused by a member that you were seen in uniform, that you're still a cop. And I go, they're a fucking liar. And I go, whoever said it, you tell them I said they're a bitch. And he goes, what if I told you it's an honorary member? And I go, well, then, I had a few other choice words. And I go, I tell you what. I go, if I'm lying, you prove this is true. You take me to my clubhouse. You bring 10 of your baddest dudes in there, lock me in there with them. Whatever happens, happens. When you find out I'm telling the truth, I want to be locked in there with this guy, those 10 bad dudes, an 8-ball, and a bunch of strippers, and I'm going to have a riot. And everyone's kind of like, here this meeting, and now I am, throwing down all ultimatums. And he goes, you sure you want to do this? I go, I'm damn sure. They get up and they leave back into the meeting. So, they come out, and he goes, you got a set of balls, man. He goes, put it this way. He goes, we're going to meet you tomorrow at the clubhouse. He goes, at first they didn't tell me the name of the person. He goes, that person will be there. You decide what you want done. So they found it was the truth I was telling. And if not, there was a member a month before I came on who was suspected of being a narc, who somehow met his demise and was found in a dumpster just because they thought that. And here I am sporting a freaking tat. So, yeah, man, it got sketchy. But drugs and alcohol was just like, it was insane.
I mean, that must probably fueled a lot of it for you. That's how I did it, was fear. So it's like, oh, this is scary. I'm do a line, have a beer. I'm scared. I'll walk right into it. Right?
Yeah, it was just like, this is the greatest thing ever.
It maybe saved you a little bit because it's like most people would hide from that. You walked right into it and you're like, prove it. I don't give a shit.
Because this time I knew it wasn't a lie. And it was just like I wanted part of this. But, yeah, man, so this whole event, it just keeps going. And for me, people will say, Bub, you've been blessed. And I truly have, man. With my mom and my family, I have been blessed. With other things that I shouldn't be here, with the shooting, the stabbing. I'm cut all the way up my arm. I went in for an exam. They started an IV, and there was improper technique, so I ended up with sepsis. I had to be rushed down for emergency surgery. They said they didn't know if I was going to make it from that. My appendix burst. I had to have emergency surgery for that. I had a surgery where they went to take the tube out of my throat, and I couldn't breathe. My throat spasmed shut, and my lungs filled with blood, scarred. I mean, all of these things, like 4 different things where they said you should have been dead. The like we were talking about rock bottom for me, and this kind of goes back to our story about Jerry. I was at a point where I'm just slamming drinks after drinks. Unfortunately, I moved back with my parents because my dad, he passed unfortunately now, was diagnosed with ALS. Evil disease, man. Evil disease. My dad was a bull, just a big, massive Italian, strong as a bull, and it just ate his body. And so I moved in to help. He ended up passing, and my drinking just went through the roof. And one day I woke up and I looked in the mirror and my eyes are yellow. And it was like Jerry popped in my head. So I'm sitting there, and later on the day, a friend of mine came over, and she walks in and she was like, your eyes are yellow. Yeah. She goes, you got to go to the doctor. No. She goes, you got to go to the doctor, man. She goes, you're going to die. Yeah, I know. Same exact thing Jerry said. So she leaves. The next day, all right, I do whatever routine drinking that day. The next day, I remember getting up, staring at the clock for the liquor store to open, sitting there like this. Go to the liquor store with the people who I know. I walk in. Within less than 12 hours now at that point, I'm as yellow as can be from head to toe, not just my eyes, everything. I walk up, and the lady looks at me. She goes, you're yellow. And she goes, Manny. And I just looked at her. Didn't say a word. I grabbed the bottle. I was sitting like this. I grabbed that. So I don't know how I chipped my teeth, man, or didn't chip them. When I got to the parking lot trying to open that damn thing just to guzzle it, that's how terrible it was at that point. I went home. Really, everything starts to go from a blur after this because this is bad, where I woke up later that evening and I was yelling or something to get my mom's attention. I remember falling back into the bed, and next I wake up on a gurney, and I'm being taken to the hospital right down the street from us. And I was, things get real blurry from here. Now it's a lot of information I got from family that were there. They said that they told them there's nothing we can do for him. We got to send him to Henry Ford, Maine, major trauma in Detroit. Long story short, they sent me there, and I ended up spending almost 30 days in Henry Ford, Maine, about 15 of it in ICU, coded a couple times, and this whole time I'm in organ failure. Kidneys, pancreas, liver are all shutting down. They're all functioning barely. So they're keeping an eye on me. They're like, we don't know. One morning I wake up, and there's these 2 doctors. There was an older gentleman and a younger female who were in charge of the organs, my doctors. So it was just him, and he's looking at me. He goes, I need to talk to you, about your organ failure. He goes, 6 out of 10 people like this don't make it. I'm like, what are you telling me this shit for? We're having a conversation. And I said, well, I'm glad I'm not one of those 6. And he goes, no, you don't understand, Manny. Your numbers are worse. And he had the personality of this Mike. I mean, just trying to talk to the guy. And he's like, yeah, there's nothing we can do for you. I'm sorry. And I'm just like, he goes, my associate will be in to talk to you. And he gets up and walks out. So I'm on Dilaudid because their pancreatitis is so bad. So I'm sitting there, and I wake up, and his associate's in there, this really nice younger female. As soon as I saw her, she starts tearing up. And I remember thinking, fuck, this is real. And she goes, yes. And I remember saying, please, there's got to be something you can do. And she goes, Manny, when you've been here, your pancreas, kidneys, and liver have been functioning, but just barely. For the last 36 hours, they have completely shut down. They are not functioning, and they don't start back up again. There's no medicine. There is no cure. There's nothing we can do for you. And I go, how long do I have? She goes, starts crying even more. She goes, less than 6 weeks. John, I had to call my mom, and I'm like, I can't tell her I'm going to die on the phone. So I'm like, you got to come in. And so she gets there, a friend of mine, she gets there, a couple other family members get there. And it's like, how do you have this conversation with your mother? Hey, Ma, just so you know, the doctor was in earlier and I'm going to be dead in 6 weeks. So I just remember saying, I'm sorry, but I have to leave you. And like, you're hallucinating. Well, the doctors came in and they said there's nothing we could do for him. And the shit got real. And my mom was just like, no. So they had hospice care come in, introduce themselves. They're like, we're going to be there with you until the end. You're not going to be in pain. We're talking about my death here. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So they come in and they take blood from me to transfer over to hospice care. Well, they come back in like 2 hours later, and there are 2 more doctors, and they're taking more blood. And they're like, this process is going to take a couple days, so we're going to keep you here. Well, whatever. They came in like every 2 to 4 hours, taking more blood, and every time more doctors are coming in, looking at their little charts and asking me stupid questions. How you feel? Fucking dying. So, this goes on for 7 days, and every time more doctors. My 7th day, my room is full of doctors, and Dr. Death is at the foot of my bed staring at me, and he starts laughing. I go, you evil prick. You're sending me home to die, and you're laughing? And his associate comes over, sits down on the side of the bed, and starts crying, holds my hand. She goes, we're sending you home to live. She goes, that's why all these doctors are here. That's why we're taking your blood. When we went to transfer it to hospice, there should have been nothing, but we had to document it. And here you had your numbers improved. Ever since that day we were taking all this blood, your numbers, your lab work are all in normal limits now. They said, when we told you 6 weeks, it was to give you enough fight for your family coming in from out of town. They said, we didn't think you were going to make it 48 hours. Here it is, almost 5 years later. By the grace of God, I'm still here.
That's amazing. That shows just how the body can work, you know what I mean? And that God has a plan. For some people, sadly, it doesn't work out. For some, it's you have a purpose to be here, and obviously you're fulfilling that.
Yeah, my mom, when I told her, and she said nothing, she kept shaking her hand. What she did say was, it's not up to them when you die. It's not up to them when it's your time. She goes, it's up to God. And God, she goes, it's not your time. I'll never forget that.
That's amazing.
Ma was right.
Yeah, one of my dad's aunts from the city is old Irish Manhattan woman would always say, when you're born, God stamps you. And she was actually a nun for a while and then drank her way out of it. She was old school Irish. But she would say, God, you don't know. She's like, God stamps you on the ass with a date when you're born, and that's your date and time,
That's just, and you know what? It sounds silly, but yeah. I thoroughly believe that. And it's just one of those things where, you hear, every time I tell that story, it's like, yeah, okay. Well, OG, that you met, she's a nurse. And I remember when I first told her this story, she was just like, that doesn't happen. No. When all 3 kidneys, pancreas, and liver shut down, she goes, they shut down, that's it, you die. She goes, because I'm still here. And she's like, it's a miracle that, first of all these other things, but to have complete organ failure and to be sitting here, not on any I am on like high blood pressure medicine. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune issue, and I'm taking that. Other than that, I'm not on any medication. My labs are perfect. And now, don't forget, too, John, this is in 2020, man. This is when COVID shut the world down. They said you need intensive 24/7 therapy, rehab. Well, I left in the beginning of February. The world was shut down. I go to this place, and they're like, sorry, we're closed. There's nothing we can do for you. There's nobody here. If you have any issues, if you have any harmful thoughts, if you have this, whatever, you need to go to ER. By the grace of God, I have never once been to a meeting because I couldn't. I never had a sponsor. I never did any type of program at all because it wasn't there. I've never had one craving. I've never had any withdrawal. It's like, and I went from drinking a fifth and a half a day to nothing. And but like I said, it's nothing. It's just such a blessing. It's very strange. It's just like here, I'm watching the clock to see when the liquor store open, and here now, I go to the bar with my buddies, a casino. It's crazy.
It's the blessing of sobriety, and it's amazing. Do you believe, if you don't mind talking about in a higher power?
You know what? I was born and raised Catholic, and I was never that guy running around quoting scriptures and all that. I couldn't tell you one. But I've always had a very strong faith in God. Obviously, a lot more so now. I'm not going to sit there and say, "Oh, I always did," because I didn't. Okay, there's a God. Yeah, okay. And that was about it. Now, taking that step back and re-examining my life, how things happen at certain times, the people that came into my life left my life, the different path. It's just like, when they say God's will, not yours, God's time, not yours, and all that stuff. My faith is huge. That means everything to me. And one thing I never, like with My Fight or War, is I don't care. We'll talk about everything, but we're not going to be talking about politics and religion because, I don't care what you believe in your faith is, as long as you have faith. And that's what mine is.
I'm identical here. I couldn't tell you. Just recently, March will be 6 years sober for me. I just started reading a Bible just to see what I believe in and learn. I grew up in a Catholic church. I actually attend the Catholic church. But I'm the same way. There's no way looking at people's stories like yours and mine or anyone's story in the world. I couldn't make certain things happen, so everything else played out. Like God is timing things exactly right. And
it is, crazy. Man. It really is. And it's just, and you look at it, and it's like, oh my God, just amazing. And then having that total belief and acceptance, and even now, I mean, I'm only human, man. There's times where it's like, oh, come on, there's more to this. There's, you try to understand, which is a big mistake because you never will. And then the more I accept that it's okay. No matter what happens, it's because it's supposed to happen. And it's just it's a blessing, man.
Yeah, some real peacefulness and sobriety.
Yeah,
even though sometimes you still want to bang your head off a wall, but once you you get to the acceptance, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What are you doing now? I just had the privilege to be on your podcast. It was amazing. So let them know about where they could find you, what you're doing. Yeah,
what happened was I was always that guy, even in the past, where, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, this, and this tomorrow. And then it would never come. So people, thought, oh, when you got this news, you probably started this immediately. And it's like, nope. It was like 3 years went by until one day, January 9th coming up is going to be our 2-year anniversary for My Fight or War. January 27th coming up is going to be my 5-year sobriety date. And at 2023, I remember sitting in my house, and I got up, and all of a sudden I had this feeling. And I went into the kitchen, I grabbed a pen and paper, and within 5 minutes, I don't know why or what, I wrote, and I still have the paper in my studio at home, I wrote, My Fight Our War. And I remember just looking at it. Okay, and then I wrote, join our pack, you'll never be alone, within 5 minutes. And I'm looking at this, and I'm laughing. I go, wait a minute, my fight. Someone might be alcohol. Someone else's fight might be heroin. It might be meth. But our war is addiction. So our separate fights. And I go, oh, you're good. And then I've always loved wolves. I've got a huge tattooed wolf on my back. And that wolf pack, the mentality of taking care of each other and everything. So I drew this wolf there. It looks like a sick cat. But so I started My Fight or War, which I don't know anything about social media. Any type of speaking, I would get nervous talking to myself, man. But I started My Fight or War, and that's what it's a social-based media support. It's group, but it's a family. We are all a family, and we're here to support, motivate in any way possible. You can check us out on. You can go to YouTube for our podcast at My Fight or War, TikTok, Instagram. Facebook, I do lives every Monday. I have guests come on and tell their testimony, their stories on Facebook Live. It's just this has opened up so many doors, and it's just a blessing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful that we crossed paths.
Definitely.
I think we got more work to do, so I'm excited to see where it goes. If you can, go check them out. Check out the podcast. I'm grateful for your time, Manny.
Man, thank you, John. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you
again.
again.
We've got some work to do in the future, brother.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Manny, thank you so much. Check out My Fight, Our War. Thank you for listening to Addicts Truth. If you need help today, reach out for help anytime. If not, make sure you share some love to someone that needs it. It's Recovery Jon. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and have a wonderful day.